Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. Nice to have you along with us. And this evening, we're talking Comrades Marathon, and we welcome back to the program I call him new, General Manager, previously acting race and operations manager of the Comrades Marathon, Alain Delay. Alain, welcome to the program. Thank you for your time. I know you have a very busy schedule at the moment. It's been a roller coaster ride since last we spoke to you. I mean, I think it was while we were talking to you that there was a whole lot of drama going on in the back room, and we didn't even know on that particular day that you were going to be promoted to the general manager. Firstly, welcome to the show and congratulations on the appointment.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. Good to be back on your show. Yes, you got right. So, yeah, we had no idea, including myself, that the board is going to planning the promotion. So, yeah, I mean, it was 7 months of that I was in the acting race and operations manager position, and then, yeah, effectively from the beginning of this year that I've been permanently appointed as the general manager.
And let's be perfectly honest. I mean, I guess when you look in the mirror, you go, wow, I can't believe how much has happened in such a short space of time. I mean, you really took over. If I may say, it was like a raging fire was going on, and there was a lot of extinguishing that had to be done with board meetings and revolts, if I can use that word. But I guess the rocky road is kind of a bit smoother now and running much better.
Yes, definitely, Louis. So, some people in comrade circles amongst our volunteers actually used to say to me that me in particular I went through a baptism of fire because it was exactly that, as you know very well. Yeah, last year was a very, very challenging year for the CMA as an organization. Not so much the event. The event was very successful last year, but yeah, post the event until we elected the new board in November, it was a very rocky road. Lots and lots of challenges, sleepless nights, stress. Yeah, but the worst is over and happy days ahead. It's just very, very busy on our end, but the CMA is in a very good space. The race itself is in an excellent space as we speak. So yeah, we in considering everything that happened in 2024, 2025 has already shown to be much more promising.
It's amazing, though, because if you think about it, I mean, let's talk about the human spirit. Let's talk about what you need to do to be able to run that race. I mean, you have to dig as deep as you can inside of you to complete the ultra marathon. And I guess similarly, that's what you guys had to do off the road, if you like, within the walls of Comrades Marathon House. And you've done that very, very successfully and come out of it. So I guess even though I guess some of you have run the race, but you've been able to show the runners this true spirit of what you've been able to do off the road to get them back on the road.
Yes, I like the way you put that, Louis, because you're 100% spot on there. That, with all the challenges, which the runners were privy to all that, because so much of it was in the media and social media. So, it just shows that even at Comrades House and in the office and in the boardroom, that we also have to be as resilient and basically as tough as a Comrades runner needs to be on the road. So, and yeah, it was not an easy time, but again, we overcame the challenges, just dug deep, held together, those of us that were, involved at the CMA at the time last year. And, everyone displayed awesome team spirit and camaraderie, which again, one of the pillars of the Comrades Marathon. And yeah, we showed the world and the running community that, we're here for them at the end of the day. We're here to host this beautiful event called the Comrades Marathon. And no matter what happens in terms of politics or anything else, we will not be distracted in terms of putting on the best race for them.
Yeah, I mean, podcasts like these are theatre of the mind, and I can actually see you and your fellow administrators really arms around each other, trying to get over that line before that final gun went, like we see at the end of the race so many times in years gone by. Right, let's talk about the race. 98th Comrades Marathon, Pietermaritzburg City Hall, 8th of June this year on a Sunday, 49th down run, just a couple away from that 100. I mean, the excitement must be building, first of all, for the 98th one, but clearly you're planning, looking ahead at 100 as well.
Yes, definitely, Louis. So lots of excitement and new ideas are being shared amongst all our committees and stakeholders, our board to our race organizing committee, all the comrade staff, and also involving most of our sponsors and partners in the excitement and the planning for the 2027 edition, because it's going to be a very, very special year in terms of, new innovation and exciting aspects of the race that primarily is to give the runners the best experience ever. I mean, for most of us or all of us, it's, we're not going to be around for the 200th running of the race, which I have no doubt the race will still be going strong in by then. So it's important for us while we're all here and alive and kicking to make sure that we make this the ultimate best event or edition of the Comrades Marathon.
When we look at 98, well, as we approach 98, I mean, I guess the first 50 were pretty much similar. And then going back 40, 45 years, things must have started to change. And then as the race grew, commercialization came in, professionalism came in, new ideas came in. How do you keep making it fresh? I mean, it's not, like an Olympics, for example, that every 4 years moves to another city. Events are added to it, events are taken away from it, or a world championships or a soccer World Cup. This is pretty much 1 year you run up, the next year you run down, basically. I know there's been a couple of years when you've gone in the same direction. How do you keep it fresh? Where do you find the new ideas every year?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, Louis, but every year we try and we do come up with strategic objectives for that year and beyond. But with the new board that was elected, and of course myself being permanently elected as the general manager, together as well as with the fantastic input of the race organizing committee and staff, we have been brainstorming and involving some external role players, some very creative minds. We've got some people with fantastic technical expertise in terms of road running and eventing. So this year in particular, there's going to be many new innovations that runners will see and appreciate, and also a lot more being done by our various sponsors. But it's important to, as you say, stay relevant, stay fresh, etc. So hence I say, everyone will see very soon the change in some of our content in terms of what we put out on a marketing comms perspective, even on our social media platforms, etc., on our website. There's going to be some changes there coming very soon. Had some great meetings the last couple of days, etc. So every year looking to innovate and come up with new things, because at the end of the day, with that title we hold as the oldest and largest ultramarathon in the world, we need to constantly be evolving, and we also need to embrace change. It's important not to want to keep doing things the same. So again, with the renewed energy that's being experienced at Comrades House and with, even from our board and our committees, there's just a renewed sense of passion and ideas that are coming through. It's amazing to see, like in some of our meetings, the creative juices that are flowing. It's absolutely amazing. And the runners are really going to appreciate it because, like, for example, 3 of our main focus areas this year is that the race needs to be more runner-centric, as we call it. So that's effective, meaning a lot more runner focused on what the runner's experience will be. Secondly, in terms of not only female or women participation, but also doing a lot more for our women runners and women development, etc. Not only this year, but also beyond. And also what additional innovations, additional assistance, or any inputs, etc., we can do into the race planning and on the race day itself for our female participants. And thirdly, from a safety and security aspect. So that's a big focus for us this year, to improve all our safety standards, all our security measures, which already has now at an advanced planning stage and will be implemented at this year's race.
Absolutely unbelievable. I mean, it's a massive task for one day's run. It really boggles my mind how much goes into putting a race of this magnitude on. You come with vast experience, Elaine. I mean, I know it's blow smoke up your where here, but I mean, you go back a long way. You've been involved in major events, the APSA Cape Epic, F&B Wines to Wales, event logistics manager at Media 24. So your vast experience comes with you to the race. But I guess it must be, in a way, a little difficult to use ideas from other events that you've put on without people going, but Elaine, you've done that before. Yet I guess if it works, it works.
Yeah, that's true, Louis. But exactly as you said, there's some ideas learning from other events. So in my own experience, but even other events that I've visited, as a Comrades Marathon representative. I've been late last year. I went to the San Francisco Marathon, so lots of key learnings I picked up visiting the race there. That's actually going to be implemented at this year's Comrades Marathon, and also learning from some of our, if you want to call it the other larger or mass participation events in the country. Some of the larger cycling events, mountain biking events. I'm actually down in Cape Town at the moment at the Two Oceans Marathon Expo and getting to network with some of the guys, like, for example, even from Cycle Tour and others. And, that kind of discussions and networking and brainstorming together, that's where we share ideas, and which is actually something that wasn't done previously, but I'm doing a big push on that in terms of not only relationship management and networking, but also the sharing of ideas of how we can share ideas of new improvements to our races every year.
That's great to hear, because I know in years gone by, it's kind of like, in a weird way, terrible rivalry between like the Two Oceans and the Comrades. It's like, don't cross-pollinate and don't talk about the one while you're talking about the other. That for me was absolutely ridiculous. These are two major events in South Africa and in world marathon and ultramarathon terms. And yet it was almost like, well, we can't talk about the one while we're broadcasting the other and vice versa. I'm so glad that sounds like that you, at least from Comrades Marathon point of view, are trying to overcome that, because there's got to be learnings from both races to benefit runners.
Yes, exactly, Louis. And it's important that we don't lose focus as race organizers. And I'm not just saying this from our perspective as the Comrades Marathon or myself as the organizer of the race, but just as organizers of all these incredibly important and well-loved mass participation events in the country, that we shouldn't be in competition. Because, like, if you look in the road running industry or fraternity, that we need to be also keeping one thing and focused in our minds, isn't being that we are here for the runners. The runners are the most important stakeholders. We do not have an event without them. So it's important to ensure that the event is focused on them and their needs and wants, and to be able to put on the most amazing, safest, and enjoyable event that we can without our own rivalries or politics in the background. Then it'll just make the sport much more enjoyable and fun for everyone involved.
You're listening to the edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. We'll have more for you after these.
Hey, Unique Tribe, I'm thrilled to announce that our upcoming episode 68 drops on April 6, 2025.
In this episode, we are diving deep into the topic that resonates with many of us, trauma and its impact on our behaviors. We will explore how complex trauma, characterized by ongoing repeated trauma during childhood, can lead to avoidance in our adult lives.
Whether you've experienced this personally or know someone who has, this episode will shed light on the often hidden effects of complex trauma.
We will share insights and wisdom that can help you move from avoidance to connection.
Tune in on April 6, 2025. You can listen on all major platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, www.uniqueyetconnected.com, and more. Remember to subscribe, like, comment, and share with your friends.
Hello everybody, I'm Louis Karpas. From the Boardroom to the Locker Room looks ahead to a fantastic sporting weekend. It's the Japanese Grand Prix, it's Premier League of football, the clay court tennis season gets underway, and lots more. Join me from the Boardroom to the Locker Room, 6 to 6:30 Central African Time. Right, let's talk about those runners, because the one thing that you don't necessarily have to worry about, certainly post-COVID, is to fill up the entries. There are tens of thousands of runners that want to get involved in the race. There's always, unfortunately, got to be a cutoff. But for someone who's not an ultramarathon runner, you guys have made it easier this year. You got longer qualifying, you got different cutoff times. You really are making it easy for these guys. Bruce must be thinking to himself, gee, when I ran the race, it didn't give me any advantage.
Yeah, I think Bruce and others from his days must be thinking exactly that, Louis. We actually do have some runners that will comment on that, especially, or like to comment on that, especially those that ran when they still had to complete the race in 11 hours. And qualifying times were a lot more stricter. But you're quite right, Louis, to your first point, that we have decided that, it should never be the intention of us as the Comrades Marathon to want to cut runners off on the route or ensure they don't finish or anything. Not to say that that's what we did, but our intention should be to encourage or allow runners the best possible chance of finishing. So having said that, as you've rightly mentioned that, our qualifying time to 5 hours, and then of course cut-off times, etc. on the route on race day will be a lot less stringent as in previous years. And there's just additional safety measures, etc. on the route. But we're forecasting that we may possibly have, don't quote me on it, but we may possibly have the highest finisher rate ever. Last year was the highest in history. We may improve on that this year because of all these additional measures we put in place. Because we want everyone to be able to at least have strong chance or some possibility of crossing that finish line within the 12 hours.
So people still obviously have an opportunity to qualify up until the 5th of May. Entries full?
Yes, so entries sold out very quickly, Louis, and then we added an additional 1,000 entries in the first week of December. And those 1,000 entries were completely sold out in 1 hour and 40 minutes. So within that same day or that same morning, we had reached a cap of 24,000 entries. Then we had commenced our substitution period a couple of weeks back, and the withdrawal process from the substitution entry process ended on the 31st of March. It was Monday, and then opened our substitution process for runners wanting to substitute an entry with those that had withdrawn this Tuesday, the 1st of April at 10 a.m. And in under 24 hours, those available substitution entries were all snapped up. So again, by yesterday morning, by the time we all woke up, the substitution entries had reached their cap. So we are again back to our cap of 24,000 entries, which is now closed. And that's the number we're going with for this year's edition.
Just explain to our listeners why there is that cap. I mean, the London Marathon has over 40,000 entries. Some of the other marathons around the world might have the same and even more. It's not like this is in a stadium where if you sell 50,000 tickets, there's not 51,000 tickets. Why do you cut it off? Because I'm sure you could accommodate 40,000 people if you wanted.
Louis, there's several factors why we can't actually, for example, have 40,000 runners. One of them is, for example, the ongoing roadworks that we have on the route between Pietermaritzburg and Durban. There's the N3 roadworks, some of the roadworks on our Comrades route, which is the R103. Then, of course, the width of our route in certain sections just does not allow that. Whereas if you look at someone like an event like the London Marathon or New York Marathon for that matter, being a city marathon, also 42 kilometer and not a 90 kilometer ultra between two cities, they're all held within the precincts of one city, all the various road closures that they have, etc. So, and as we all know, road infrastructure and the width of roads in Europe and the US, etc., where all these major marathons are held, is very conducive to having 30,000 plus runners. So our roads on our routes is just not conducive to having that kind of numbers. And the number one reason, Louis, is safety. So in an ideal world, we could say, and due to the demand and how everyone is wanting so much to run Comrades, if we had to open up another 10,000 entries today, I can almost guarantee by tomorrow, within 24 hours, most of those 10,000 entries would be gone. So the demand is there, but we have to be responsible organizers and look what's more important, which is the safety of our runners and the experience of runners. Because you don't want to be on narrower sections of the Comrades route, having to walk almost the entire Comrades, and not because you're in pain or anything, but because there's so many people in front of you and behind you. So those are some of the most important factors. As I say, safety is paramount, and that's one of the main reasons. And of course, the restrictions on our actual roads on our route.
Right. Tell us a little bit about the start in Maritzburg and the finish in Durban, where it's going to be this year. I guess the start's still the same, City Hall in Maritzburg, but tell us about the finish.
Yeah, so the start is the same venue, and it's going to be a two-start process, as we've published, in the media, etc. recently. And so the first start, which is effectively your elites, A batch, all your faster qualified runners, they will start, I said, 5:45 a.m. And then 15 minutes later, from your green number batch, which is your E batch in our Comrades terminology, as well as your charity runners, so all runners that are running our race for charity for any one of our 6 official Comrades charities, those two groups will start at the beginning or the front of Group 2, which is at 6 a.m. They will leave Maritzburg City Hall, and then they will all proceed then to Durban, traditional down run route. But just something important to note for your listeners is that in 2023, the last down run, there was a lot of issues around a particular section of the route as you leave Maritzburg. So within 2Ks or 1.5 Ks after leaving the City Hall, where there was a narrow section of the route, which there was also some potential injuries where people were falling, etc. And because of the road width, selected a route where, as you come out of Pietermaritzburg, you turn right into Alexandra Road and then into Ritchie Road and onwards towards Polly Shorts. And those sections of this year's route for the down run are much wider, much safer, etc. And also at the later start, we will have the benefit of sunrise coming through, etc., instead of running in total darkness as it has been on previous down runs. For the most part, most of the route is still the same as previous down runs after you've basically from Polly Shorts onwards. The one change which we had announced at our race launch in November last year is that the finish is at People's Park, which is run and managed by Moses Mabhida Stadium, and they are effectively neighbors directly across from each other. So for the first time since the early days of Comrades, in other words, in the 1920s and 30s, the race finish, so the actual finish line and the finish gantry structure where runners will cross over the timing mats is going to be on the street. So it will be a street finish on Masabulala Yengwa Avenue, or as many know its previous name, NMR Avenue, directly outside People's Park. So runners will cross over that finish line mat on the street and thereafter proceed to get their medals, badges, and of course all their refreshments, etc. But the majority of the Comrades Marathon infrastructure in terms of our race village, marquees, etc., will be inside the People's Park venue. So that's adjacent to the actual finish line. And we will have lots and lots of parking areas, lots of security everywhere. We've increased our security. We've almost effectively doubled our security from previous years to avoid issues such as petty crime and the safety of our spectators and runners. We've also introduced a park and ride shuttle service, which we've never had before at the Comrades Marathon. So that will be also taking runners to our various parking areas and overflow parking. And of course, with the later starts, a new safety measure we've also introduced is for the last 10 kilometers, so effectively from the 45th cutting Sherwood area all the way to the finish outside People's Park. We are going to have floodlights on trailer units, etc., additional marshals and security for that last 10 Ks, because effectively the runners that are making it just to finish in time by 6 p.m. on the day, 12 hours, would be effectively running when it's already getting dark. Hence the additional safety and lighting measures that the Comrades Marathon Association is going to have in place. So that's effectively it in summary, Louis, for the start, route and finish.
I'd be very interested, obviously, post the race to hear what the fans and particularly the runners are not having that traditional stadium finish where you have that sort of intimate, what's it last, 400-500 meters running onto the grass, being massively cheered on inside a cauldron of a stadium. How difficult was it to make that decision to have a road finish as opposed to a stadium finish?
Yeah, so Louis, just before I explain how difficult it was, but it is actually of benefit to the runners from a safety perspective, because for your listeners' benefit as well, this year's numbers of the entries for a down run, and potentially even with runners that may not qualify or get injured, this year's down run will have the largest ever number of starters for a down run in the history of the Comrades Marathon. So previously it was around the 16,500 mark of starters, and this year you could potentially have anywhere between, of our 24,000, you could anywhere between 21 up to 22,000 starters on the day. So that presents its own set of safety risks, etc. Hence the reason to also have a street finish. But one of the main reasons also over and above safety is for the 100th running, Louis, because if we are going to increase the field for that special edition of the race, we need to also do it responsibly and safely. And the only way to have that based on our road capabilities, etc., because that will also be a down run, is to then have a street finish. The other thing is, Louis, which you mentioned about the cheering and the vibe, or if you want to call it the gees of the race, is that we actually are introducing again something that hasn't been there for many years, is that lining along the outside of the speed fence on the speed fence with the branding on the finish straight along Masabalala Yengwa Avenue, we are going to have club tents for running clubs, which basically almost been sold out already. So we're going to have those hospitality club tents that running clubs can then cheer runners on, as well as the grandstands that you'll be familiar with that we also had at last year's race and previous editions of the race, particularly upruns. So those grandstands, which are sponsored by one of our sponsors, Formscaf, as well as SGB, we are going to have those grandstand seating as well for spectators lining that entire finish straight area. So as much as you're not in a stadium bowl per se, you're still going to have amazing vibe here cheering on of the runners, because spectators can literally walk up to the finish straight speed fencing and high five runners, cheer them on, clap for them, etc. So the vibe is actually going to be quite amazing.
Sounds absolutely amazing. I know that you would like the days before the race to go slowly because you've got lots to still prepare. After chatting to you today, I can't wait for the race. I wish it was next week. Alan, it's always an absolute pleasure talking to you, and thank you so much for your insight. And I'm sure everybody that listens to From the Boardroom to the Locker Room has been enlightened by many of the questions that I've wanted to ask, and I'm sure they've wanted to ask as well. But a final one, and I do ask this tongue-in-cheek on a slightly humorous note, and I don't know if you've ever been asked this before, and maybe as a precursor to somebody else asking you, are we going to hear the cock crow twice and chariots of fire twice at the start?
Yes, so that is our intention. And Louis, unfortunately, you're not the first person to ask me that. So yes, because of having that 15 minutes delay between the two groups, number one, and then number two, look, anyway, when we have one start, the runners right at the back, the slowest qualified runners cannot even hear the cock crow or see any of the traditions and festivities taking place that the front runners would see. So this is actually an opportunity for them, even if it's just for this year, for example, to experience that. So to answer your question, we are going to repeat all those traditions twice.
Lovely stuff. Alain Delay, absolute pleasure chatting to you. I know you're in Cape Town. I know you're busy, but you know what? Have a look at Table Mountain. It's a bit nicer in terms of sight than Polly Shorts and Valley of a Thousand Hills. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll chat to you again soon.
Thank you, Louis.
Alain Delay, the man in charge of the 2025 Comrades Marathon, our special guest on tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. That's tonight's show. Don't forget to join us tomorrow evening when we will be previewing the sporting weekend. As always, be nice to each other. Until next time, bye for now.